What's going on, guys? Chuck in.
Chris.
And today we're going to be discussing a movie that was something a first time watch for Chris. Something we talked about a while back, and which was brought on from. We were going to see this movie at the Art Craft a couple weeks back. I got to see it. I really want to take it, but unfortunately, he went out of town that week. Him and his mom and sister went out of town, so I had to see it myself. I really wanted to check this movie out because one of my all-time favorite comedies, and that is Show 'em what it is.
It is Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes, Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. I said this is. I'm gonna hold it together.
Yeah, it's a movie.
So yeah, it was the idea. We wanted to see this at Arca because they were showing it, and which was also the impetus for me to actually buy this 4K edition because all I had was the old DVD. So it's gave me a good excuse to pick this and part 2 up, which I'd shown a couple videos ago. But I thought it'd be really fun to show this to Chris now. I know there's a lot of adult language throughout this film. Actually, when I went to Art Craft, they made a point to let everyone know that this was rated R because they don't usually show too many rated R films. And I guess they got some complaints about it prior to. But when I saw this, I actually saw this in the theater in 1984 when it came out. And so, which made me 9 years old when I saw it.
No way.
Yeah, it was a different time. People weren't so picky. I mean, it is under 17, accompanied by adult. But it's a lot of fun. And I said, immediately I was hooked to it. I thought the character of Axel Foley is one of my favorites. Partially, I think maybe it's because I'm partial to it because he's from Detroit. So, there's this automatic bias on that. But I also think, like I've said before, this is like probably Eddie Murphy's best character. I think even he'd probably say it's considered his best character. Little background for you probably don't know about Eddie Murphy. He got his start on Saturday Night Live. After the original cast had left, they brought in, like, from 1980, he was one of the newer kids that came in. He was like 18 years old on Saturday Night Live, and he was like the big breakout star from that, because at that time SNL was like really, really bad. Lorne Michaels, who was the creator producer, he left. So for years 80 to 85 was really downhill. But Eddie Murphy was on there for his first few years of that. He became a huge star, was the most popular one on the show, and eventually he got a movie career starting in 48 Hours with Nick Nolte, when it was a huge hit. He was only co-starring in that. I can't remember if Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd, who was an SNL original, came out before or after Beverly Hills Cop, but I think before. But anyways, Beverly Hills Cop was Eddie Murphy's first starring role. First time he got to carry the whole movie on his own, and he knocked it out of the park. From this point on, Eddie Murphy was the biggest box office star in the world during the 80s. I mean, how The Rock has for a while was known. That's basically how Eddie Murphy was back in the 80s. Until eventually that peters out. He's kind of had a resurgence over the last few years. Like I said, I was telling him, you'll know him as the voice of Donkey from Shrek. He did a lot of kids movies, a lot of Disney movies. He did the Dolomite show, a movie for Netflix, which was really good. He did a sequel to Coming to America, which is now one of the most popular movies for Netflix. He's got a deal with Netflix currently. And I've been told, or personally, I've heard that they are working on a Beverly Hills Cop 4 for Netflix, which is a movie.
There's a trilogy here?
Well, yeah, there's 3 of them. 2 good ones, and there's part 3. But yeah, they've been trying to get this Beverly Hills Cop 4 off the ground for years. So I think they're finally doing it. I'm still waiting to see for definite. But anyways, so we pulled out Beverly Hills Cop, let Chris Center watch it for the very first time. This is also his first kind of action comedy you've ever seen.
Yeah, I've never seen, I think, like a mix of the two.
Yeah, I think the most kind of action movie Chris may have seen, he saw Fast 10 at the drive-in with it. That was, pretty action, but that's way, 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 way over the top action when you get a Fast and Furious.
I barely watched any Fast and Furious, I will say.
That's the only one he's seen is Fast 10. And that was so.
Great, that's from the beginning.
So he's like 9 movies out, totally behind, and they're all over 20. But that's a whole other video. But I thought this was.
We'll get to that later.
But much like horror was in the 80s. Like I said, I told you before, the 80s was a big time for horror. But action was like probably the second biggest genre in the 80s. Arnold Schwarzenegger became popular. Sylvester Stallone became really popular. Bruce Willis became popular as an action star. Everyone's, popular as an action star. In fact, Beverly Hills Cop originally was going to be a Sylvester Stallone film. You know who Sylvester Stallone is?
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know who the man is.
Okay, well, I don't know. Just making sure. But he was trying to rewrite the script, and it was going to be. He didn't like the humor of it, and was changing it around a bit. But eventually dropped out, and he took that character, and a lot of the stuff from that script made the movie Cobra, which is another big action movie from the 80s. Was full of action. We talked about it before. The Last Action, or In Search of the Last Action Hero, was a documentary down there about the 80s, kind of like In Search of Darkness.
It's somewhere here.
But so Eddie Murphy stepped in and basically made the role his own, and Axel Foley was born. So, Chris, what is your first impressions after seeing Beverly Hills Cop?
Oh boy, I have. Okay.
Wow, it's deeper than I thought.
I don't know if you say deeper. It really throws me off. Well, not off, but
real quick, I do want to apologize if he sounds a little nasally. He is getting over a cold. Because I can hear him, he sounds really kind of, So if you're wondering, wow, what's wrong with Chris? It's not puberty. It is puberty. But it's also getting over a cold. So I'm sorry.
Get out of context of this.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
We are mature adults here.
We're back. Go ahead. I've ruined them. Sorry.
God. All right, we'll get there on one day. All right. I like the story. No, the story. Just the movie itself is good in itself. Like, what do you? It's action comedy.
Yeah,
I've never seen an action comedy.
He was asking me, well, what is this? Is it a comedy? What is the genre? I told him it's an action comedy. It's nothing. I don't really know if it's action comedies are really done much anymore. Now I think about it, it's pretty much all straight out action. I mean, the 80s you had a lot. Lethal Weapon was an action comedy. 48 Hours, the action comedy.
Yeah, it makes sense why I have never seen an action comedy because it's not common nowadays.
And and that's now they think about. Like I said, I don't really think they do the typical action comedy anymore. It's pretty much just action or it's comedy. But so, what are your thoughts?
Story plays out well. I do like the little the entire Bond thing happening with Billy, Sarge, and
Axel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the buddy cop again.
Buddy cop. Yeah,
that's another trope or genre in the 80s was the buddy cop movie. That's again, Lethal Weapon was probably one of the first of those, which are a good series. That if you enjoy this, you'll love Lethal Weapon. But yeah, that's always between John Ashton. I'm hoping I'm getting that right because I always get confused. Oh my gosh, give me a minute. Judge Reinhold and Eddie Murphy, they all have great chemistry together. Even Ronnie Cox, who plays Bogomil, all four, because they'll all come back for part 2. But they have great chemistry together. They're, especially, Taggart, Rosewood, and Foley are a great combination. Again, something that was really missing in part 3. But you can't, what carries this film is Eddie Murphy. Axel Foley is great. What do you think of Axel Foley?
His entire character just kind of fits Eddie perfectly.
Yeah, he gets to really to shine in the comedy aspects of it. What I especially love about this and part 2 is with Axel Foley is I always love he's a fast talker. He knows how to scheme to get over on people to get in and out of certain situations. This getting the hotel room, pretending to be the writer from Rolling Stone. Being the Bond security guy. Being the effeminate lover of Victor Maitland to get in the club. Telling him that he had herpes simplex can. All that stuff is great, and it's classic Eddie Murphy. Again, something that was heavily missing in part 3. One of the reasons why it's such a weaker film. And of course, what do you think of Steven Berkoff, who was the bad guy, Victor Maitland?
I don't think he got as much screen time as I thought I was going to get, but the amount of screen time he gets, he plays his character perfectly.
Is he pretty evil and sinister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He slowly reveals his character to his actual ego to other people. Mm-hmm. Other characters. I can't think.
Yeah, Steven Berkoff, he's known for playing the heavy in, actually, I don't think I've ever seen Steven Berkoff play a good guy. He's a villain in a James Bond film, Octopussy. He's the bad guy in a Prince movie, Under the Cherry Moon, of all movies.
Oh, wow.
He was a bad guy in an episode of Deep Space Nine, and it was, so on and so forth.
He's like just a big career of just being an antagonist.
Yeah, if you look at Steven Berkoff, he just looks menacing and scary. It's hard to, he's one of those guys that's kind of hard to picture not being the bad guy. He's kind of like, almost like Michael Ironside. You don't know who Michael Ironside is, but people know Michael Ironside. He's got that tough, sinister, menacing look. It's very rare to see Michael Ironside play the good guy. But when he does play the good guy, he's always like, the gruff anti-hero kind of good guy. Something like we did in V. But no, Steven Berkoff was strictly, he's just evil. He's going to play the villain. And plus, he's always got that little thing in his head.
Yeah, I noticed that. Oh, it threw me off so hard when I first saw it.
He's got a distinguishing mark, makes him a bad guy. That's the way it goes. How about, this is a very iconic 80s film. You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
There's no wheels in that chair, that. It doesn't want to scoot up. It's a very 80 or no, stop, rewind, play back. It's a very iconic 80s film. For one, the music is extremely iconic. The soundtrack was great. He'd actually heard the theme Axel F, so he knew that. I mean, that played constantly. Anytime,
if you've been on YouTube, you've obviously seen it.
Obviously, but Axel F is one of those great distinguishing themes, which you don't get much in movies anymore. That's again what was big about 80, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm an old fogey here. Back in my day, something I love about 80s soundtracks, where 80s soundtracks are so popular, almost every big hit was something from a movie, and you recognize a thing, or even not just soundtrack but scores. You had a lot of recognizable scores. You would hear and say, "Oh yeah, that's for that movie" or whatever. You don't really get that too much. I can't think of anything now except maybe the Avengers theme is the only thing I can think of. That's the Avengers.
Yeah, because because it's got that distinguishing factor.
There's very few that stick out to my mind that that's an awesome theme. I think of that, but Harold Faltermeyer, who did the music for this, he created the Axel F song, which I think I had on 45. No, actually, I had the Heat Is On by Glenn Frey, which is the opening song. Which the one thing I love about the movie is how it opens up when you get to see the Detroit with the credits, and they're playing "The Heat Is On" by Glenn Frey, who was a member of the Eagles. If you know the Eagles, yeah, he was a member of the Eagles, and that's a great song. I had that 45 for that, and but I just love seeing the rundown part. Well, I guess probably say that's all Detroit. The rundown part of Detroit, the regular people, through Detroit, which makes for later on a great contrast to when Axel drives to Beverly Hills and you're seeing the city and the people in Beverly Hills. It's night and day between the two, which I think is really well done. But yeah, back to the music. So they have that soundtrack that was really popular. Glenn Frey's "The Heat Is On," the Pointer Sisters' "Neutron Dance," which is a song playing in that opening truck chase.
Yeah.
Patti LaBelle's song, what's it called? "Stir It Up," which was playing at the end credits. You get Vanity Six's "Nasty Girl" during the strip club scene. We worked through it.
I barely did. I think I was going to throw up.
You what?
No.
You think you're going to throw up?
No.
He's still uncorrupted. That's good.
No.
It's minor though. It's minor. Again, I saw it when I was younger than him, and it is what it is. He's seen worse. He's watched the Friday 30 movies. He's all right. But they still got a really good soundtrack and saying the Axel F is still prominent this day. You hear those first few notes, dun 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 dun. Immediately.
It's one of those things about the 80s, as you said. It really, each song from each movie really had its own charm. Mm-hmm. Had one little motif, or not a motif, but one little section that just made you immediately think it was that song from that certain movie.
And another thing that makes this song So 80s is because it's keyboard, synthesizer.
Synthesizer.
Nothing
That's
screams.
the thing about the 80s.
Yeah, nothing screams 80s like keyboard and synthesizer.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing that comes to mind when you think 80s. It's just synthesizer. I know how to play.
Easy for you to say.
I'm a lisp.
So what? Since this is your like first action comedy, do you think the two blended well together?
From how they executed it, yeah.
Okay. What about the action? I think was it good? Did you like it? And
Yeah.
I know towards the end, you're really in the end of the climax. You kind of really got into it. He stopped fidgeting around. He's a fidget when he sits in the seat.
Yeah, I can't find the comfort in the $800 chairs.
Yeah, I said we got $800 some chairs. You better find the comfort in them. But he's having a hard time fidgeting around. But towards the climax, he was up and he was focused. He was into it, so you were really getting into the action and comedy. So that's cool. All right. So overall, what's your overall impressions? How would you rate Beverly Hills Cop?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. This guy's easy to please. I like that. Yeah, it's
no, it's a really good movie. Go watch it.
10 out of 10 bananas. Banana tailpipe?
No. Banana disguised out of...
Yeah, 10 out of 10 bananas and a tailpipe.
It all started from this one Spider-Man video I just did.
What?
It all started from the Spider-Man video we did.
Yeah, way back when Spider-Man, before the the voice thing happened. But yeah, again, one of my all-time favorites, and I'm glad he enjoyed it. And like I said, this is hopefully the start of me getting to have you watch a couple of these different movies and see how you like them. And some maybe you've seen, but we'll try and revisit. Like I know we saw Smoking the Bandit.
Yeah.
I know one of my all-time favorites, and he was telling me he'd like to see it again. So I think maybe we'll go over that and do that, and definitely Beverly Hills Cop 2. And then you can see 3 and realize it's not as good as the first 2.
Yeah.
And a few other things. So, okay, so that is it for now. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm glad you enjoyed this. With even as nasally as he was and fidgety as he was.
It's better now.
He's getting better. His voice is getting deeper, but he's getting better.
I was still not kidding. You've been telling me. We're promising not to make this entire video just laughing compliments.
That's more fun. Yeah, he's just a couple months away from 13. Look out. Okay. That's enough embarrassing, Chris. So until next time, this is Chuck. And this is
Chris.
And we will see you on the other side.
Yeah.